Okay, what do we have thus far? On the other hand, I have sent the brothers, in order that our boasting about you may not be falsified, rendered void, emptied, but yeah, falsified in this case because they are boasting about something, giving the Macedonians reports about the status quo of the Corinthians. Not only that, but the boasting was what caused all the other churches to become motivated to give. Now they're all motivated to give. Now they all started giving, and all of a sudden, what happened to the Corinthians? Was your boasting false, Paul? Are you just making up stories so that we can be encouraged to give? Of course, they're not going to think that, but it is a matter of embarrassment. Here you are talking about a person giving laudatory testimonies. He's this, he's advancing, and all of a sudden, nope, it's not true. Kind of like when a boxer, everyone's hyping him up, or everyone's talking about this great boxer, he's great, yes. And finally, when it comes time for him to fight, he gets knocked out in the first round. So it's a little bit discouraging. It's also a laughing matter. And the person who was hyping him up, the people that were talking about him, in turn, their testimony is falsified. So, and then en to mere tuto. So now we have en plus the dative of meros. We've seen meros many times. It means part. Part in contrast to the whole. The partial in contrast to the complete. So here in this part, in this little small part of boasting, of their boasting. So I'm going to translate it literal for now. And the part, and then we have the demonstrative and the attributive here. Even though it stands outside, yes, it's attributive as well. Demonstrative, adjective. In this part, and this matter if you want, but I like to say in this part. Okay, let's put these things together really quick. On the one hand, on the other hand, just so that you can see how it's forming. You see, on the one hand, about the ministry for the saints, it is superfluous for me to write to you, because you know the eagerness, because I know your eagerness, which I boasted to the Macedonians about you, that Achaia had been prepared since last year, and that your zeal stirred up the majority. On the other hand, I have sent the brothers in order that our boasting about you may not be falsified in this part, in this matter. And you see how it works? Now you're about to see how it continues working on the one hand, on the other hand. Okay, now we have another hina here, and another subjunctive up ahead. So what do we have? Hina plus the subjunctive is going to form as part a subfinal purpose clause. What is a subfinal purpose clause? A subfinal purpose clause is a blending of purpose and result. It is an intended result. You want something and you're trying to achieve a purpose. It is not guaranteed that you're going to achieve the purpose, but that's what you're aiming for. So we're going to call this a subfinal purpose clause. It expresses an intended result, a blending of purpose and result. Okay, so what do we have? How are we going to translate this? So we don't sound so repetitive. In order to that, I'm going to translate it so that kathos, just as, comparative, and the imperfect of lego. Lego is to say. The imperfect tense is progressive, going backwards. I was saying, just as I was talking about them, just as I was bragging. Well, not bragging, it's not in terms of arrogance. Just as I was boasting about you. The active voice, Paul produces the action of the verb, is the first person, and the indicative is declarative. So that, just as I was saying, or how do I translate it? Just as I was saying, yes. Just as I was saying you would be. And now we have this, paraskewas menoi eite. This forms a perfect periphrastic. A perfect periphrastic consists of a participle in the perfect tense and a copulative verb here, aiming, in the present tense. This might sound like a redundancy because one of these can easily do the job, but it has a purpose. So first of all, how am I going to explain this? This is translated, you might be, or you might stand prepared, or you might be in a state of preparedness. Okay, where can I begin? Let's begin with this, para que was meno. Again, the same word, para que watsu, pointing to the para que way. All these words, as you can see, kenotis, kenosis, kenoo, is a reference, are words that are used for the hypostatic union. Hypostasis, kenosis, para que way. And so, the utilization of these words are not in vain. They are to no purpose. It is done on purpose. And that's why we ended up studying all those passages about the preparation. So the perfect passive participle of parasquewatsu means be prepared. Yes. The perfect tense is intensive perfect. It's in the intensive perfect, meaning that it's a complete action, but the results continuing. So it's an emphasis on the results of the completed action. The middle voice is reflexive, just as over here. They prepare themselves. And how do you prepare yourself? Through learning Bible doctrine. And once you increase that grace, you're ready to give grace, the grace of this offering. That's how they prepare themselves. Paul is sending the brothers in advance so that they can motivate them, so that they can become prepared in fulfilling the act of this grace of giving. And the participle forms part of this construction called the perfect periphrastic. Notice that the participle itself would have done the job, or just a regular finite verb of parasquewatsu. Why not just use the perfect tense of parasquewatsu, a regular verb? No, it uses the perfect periphrastic to emphasize the state of being prepared. So now, how do you translate this by itself? Having been prepared as a participle. The perfect tense is a complete action with the results continuing. And now there's aiming, present active subjunctive of aiming, eite. And the present tense is a state of, it catches the state of already being in a state of preparedness. The active voice, the Corinthus produced the action of the verb, and the subjunctive is also forms part of this subfinal, the subfinal clause, hina plus eite. So y'all may be having been prepared. What in the world? It doesn't make much sense in the English. So in other words, you were prepared in the past. The complete actions you got prepared in the past, the results continuing, but the present tense catches you already being in the state of preparedness, so it's very emphatic. How do we translate this? So that you might be in a state of preparedness. The brothers would be sent in advance, they would prepare them, and then once Paul arrives, they already have been prepared. Okay, now we have a complete translation here. On the other hand, I have sent the brothers in order that our boasting about you may not be falsified in this matter, in this part, so that just as I was saying you would be, y'all would be in a state, or y'all might be in a state of preparedness. So that, just as I was saying, y'all might be in a state of preparedness. So, again, parasquewatsu, kenosis, kenoo, hypostasis, And over here, outside of this sentence, is another word for preparation, hetoimos. I'm just including it there. I'm not sure if it's part of it as well, but I'm beginning to think it is. All right. So now, did the Corinthians understand this? Of course they did. Whoever's teaching them is noticing the choice of these words, and therefore is telling the person who's teaching this doctrine, is telling, go to the paraskewe, go to that, go to the Passover lamb. The Corinthians understood all these things of the Jewish feasts. 1 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 6, as I was mentioning yesterday, he tells them, your boasting is not good. You're boasting, now this is boasting in terms of arrogance. Well, how do you know it's arrogance? How can you tell whether it's good boasting or bad boasting? Because they're bragging about the man of incest. On the one hand, you have those who would say, oh my gosh, the man of incest, how terribly immoral. And yes, it's very immoral. Who the hell dares to do that? But on the other hand, you have those who, they enjoy the circus. They like having the circus around them. He belongs to our church. So these guys were becoming arrogant about the fact that he was a church member of them. So our boasting, or your boasting, is not honorable. And now, with reference to their arrogance, do you not know that a little bit of yeast, huzumon, do you see this? Do you not know? A little yeast leavens the whole furama, the whole bread, the whole batch of dough. Yeast is often used for everything of the cosmic system. It's making a reference to the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And so, verse 7, get rid, ekatarate, get rid of the old yeast, so that y'all might be a new batch of dough, just as y'all already are azumoi, unleavened. So get rid of the old yeast, everything of the cosmic system. This is a reference to the celebration of the unleavened bread. Get rid of it. You still have it. But then it says, you already are unleavened. Phase 1. Phase 2, get rid of it experientially. Phase 1, positionally. You are already unleavened. And then he explains here, for Christos, way at the end of the sentence, emphatic, for Christ. And now in the apposition, to Pascha, our Passover lamb. For in fact, Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. In other words, Passover lamb has already been sacrificed. Now it's time to celebrate the Feast of Unleavened Bread. After the Passover, the 7 days of the Feast of Unleavened Bread began. And so verse 8, he tells him, therefore, let us celebrate the feast, not with the old yeast, that is, with the yeast of kakias, evil, cosmic 1, kai ponerias, wickedness, cosmic 2, but rather with the yeast of elikrineas, doctrinal purity, a doctrine that counters the arrogance of cosmic 1, kai, and truth. The truth counters the hatred of cosmic number 2. So he's telling him, get rid of the old yeast if you're going to celebrate the Feast of Unleavened Bread, not in the way the Jews did, but in our way, the things that it really represents. Your phase 2 post-salvation spiritual life, that's what it represents. I'll celebrate it without the yeast of cosmic 1 and cosmic 2. How do you do so? By using 1 John 1:9, by learning Bible doctrine. So that's what he tells him. Doctrinal purity, counter cosmic 1, truth, cosmic 2. And so did the Corinthians understand this? Of course they understood the Passover lamb. They understood the Feast of Unleavened Bread. You don't think they're going to understand all those choice of words of paraskewe, kenoo, hypostasis? They did understand.